Thank you. I have a feeling many of you are repeat customers and have taken this class before. This is session 4 of Meditation 101. I may be making a decision as to how many sessions 101 will be, and then if we'll take a break and then do session 102 and see where that takes us. I'm not sure. But we shall see. For now, let us go through the basic techniques. And I've been repeating these a lot, but that's just because I think that's what we need, to really ground ourselves in a very specific basic technique that we can go to very easily and simply. So we take our seat. I sit cross-legged like this, usually when I'm meditating, like one leg over the other. You don't have to, you could sit like this. Cushion helps to keep the hips above the knees, which often is more comfortable. You can do it in a chair if sitting on the floor is not good for you. And if you're in a chair, the hips should be aligned or above the knees, the back should be straight. Going up from the legs, the back should be straight, erect, not rigid, not too tight. The head, the same, not too tight, on a comfortable angle. The mouth should be open. The tongue should be right behind the top teeth, pressed against, kind of between the roof of your mouth and your top teeth. Shoulders a little bit back, but not forced. So you're not at attention, you're relaxed. Hands, I put palm onto the back of the hand and curve, with the thumbs touching. Or you could just put them on your knees, rested kind of comfortably, like that, like that. The gaze, my tradition is eyes open. You're not staring intensely, you're not spacing out with out of focus eyes. Your gaze is resting lightly on whatever. It could be a view out the window. It could be a flower. It could be a religious image. It could be something that inspires you, but you're not really focusing on the story behind it as much as just letting go. By letting go, I mean resting the eyes lightly on it. This pose we should think of as something almost regal, with a lot of respect and a lot of dignity when you take this seat. It's important to take your seat of meditation, no matter where you do it, but you should take it with that kind of intent, that there's something dignified and something worthy of respect taking this seat. Before we get into the actual practice, we're going to set our motivation, our intention, and we're going to use that prayer that I posted on the last IG video, which was session 4. And Nick, our producer, is going to put the prayer up on the screen, and we can say it together. And you don't have to say it. This is not required. The only thing that's required of the class is to participate in the meditation. And even that's not really required, because I won't know if you're doing it or not, but you should be if you're here. But the motivation is optional. I choose to do this. So we could say that together, or you could say it in your mind, whatever you want. And you see next to each sentence, there's the component: love, compassion, joy, equanimity. So each line represents a certain quality. So I won't be saying that component in parentheses, but that's what the weight and the meaning behind each line. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. And obviously, and we spoke about this before, we're not praying that, evil people or people committing very negative actions in the world continue their ways. We're praying that, whatever delusion and negative emotion that they're possessed by, that they be free of it, because if they're free of it, then it won't exist anymore, right? So we are setting that intention so that by the practice of meditation, we are connecting to the universal, we're connecting to all beings, not just ourselves, you know. And we're making a decision that whatever benefit we gain from our practice of meditation is going to benefit others in our very immediate circles, in our family, in our household, with our friends, in our community, and on a larger scale in the world that we interact with. Chain reaction, right? Let's go to the breath. The breath is our anchor in meditation. It's what we return to. Because in meditation, we're working with our minds. We're using the metaphor of the sky. The sky is a metaphor I use so we can work with our mind. So in our mind, we're envisioning this clear, completely stainless, blemish-free blue sky and the qualities of clarity, the qualities of limitless, of potentiality, of light, of openness. With that in mind, we'll go to the breath. We're going to breathe in through the nostrils. And it's an easy breath. We're not trying to go deep. We're not going shallow. I'm going to focus on where the breath goes in and out, which is right between the nose and the lips. And if a thought comes, we're going to notice that it's a thought. And we're going to relate it to a cloud and appearing into the sky. And cloud appears out of the sky. So it is part of the sky, but it is not the sky. And one thing we know about clouds is that they disappear, they dissipate, they go back where they came from. So if we think of the mind as the ground, the mind where all things arise from, right? A ground of clarity like the sky. I don't mean ground like dirt, I mean ground like basis. And the thoughts arise from there, and the thoughts will return there. Some take longer than others, but they do. We know that, it's proven. So if a thought comes, we're going to notice that we're thinking. That's all. We're not going to judge the thought. We're not going to be angry that we had the thought. We're not going to follow the thought. We're just going to notice it and go back to the breath. Same for emotions. Thought and emotions, very similar, made of the same material, come from the mind. If we're experiencing a particular hard emotion, a heavy emotion, the same thing. Just notice it and go to the breath. With that all in mind, let's do 3 minutes of meditation. I'm going to set my stopwatch. My timer's better. 3 minutes. Just a couple of things you probably noticed me shifting. That is totally okay. You don't, once you start, you don't have to be locked into your physicality, into your seat, into your position, into your posture. Not, not the point. Adjust, get comfortable. The other thing you probably notice is that you were thinking. I felt kind of spaced out during that time. By spaced out, I mean losing the presence and the awareness of thought just a little bit. I think it's because I'm physically tired or didn't sleep well. And those things all will affect our, because meditation is a combination of a physical and a mental practice. You're not separating yourself from your body. It's part of it. But then, like I said, the breath is the anchor. So when a thought comes and we touch it lightly and we read the importance, the crux of everything is realizing that we're thinking. Because so often we're not. We'll just go. It's like, the thoughts just pull us and pull us and pull us. It's mostly how we've lived most of our lives. So to notice the thought and go back to the breath, you can use the image of the sky or that cloud of thought just dissipating back into the clarity of the sky. Back to the breath. It's the noticing of the thought, the becoming awareness of the thought that will liberate you from the thought and the emotion to some degree. I'm going to read a little today, which I haven't done before. I'm reading through a book. Now, most of you know I'm a Buddhist. I practice Tibetan Buddhism. This is not a Buddhist class. This is not a class about Buddhism. This is a class about meditation, and meditation can be done by and is done by anybody from any religion, any walk of life. But I'm reading this because it's inspiring to me. The name of the book is Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism by Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. It's a very famous book. It was written in the 70s, I imagine. Yeah, 73. It's a classic of Tibetan Buddhism by a Tibetan Buddhist teacher who was instrumental in Buddhism taking root in the West, in the United States, and Canada and Mexico and South America and Europe as well. So I'm just going to read a couple of things that I found applicable to what we're doing. According to the Buddhist tradition, and like I said, this is just what inspires me. The spiritual path is the process of cutting through our confusion, of uncovering the awakened state of mind. So the awakened state of mind is, being awake, being aware of how our mind is working, being aware that our mind, the basis of our mind, contains such clarity and peace, luminosity, potentiality, limitless. It is limitless, limitlessness. And that's important. It's important to know that. And, there's an impartiality to mind as well. So it's not a matter of building up the awakened state of mind, but rather burning out the confusions which obstruct it. In the process of burning out these confusions, we discover enlightenment. If the process were otherwise, the awakened state of mind would be a product dependent on cause and effect, and therefore liable to dissolution. So I'm not going to get into enlightenment, and that's not what we're dealing with. I'm talking about there is a bit of the awakened state of mind we're dealing with, which is awakened to the thought that we are thinking, awakened to the concept that we are thinking, and we can become aware of our thinking. So we can work with the mind and work with these thoughts and sit in states of peace and states of awareness and states of openness that are not clouded by these states of confusion. Basically, what's important in this, and what I want to stress, is it's not a matter of building up. It's a matter of burning out the confusions. In the same way, it's a matter of going beyond the thought, letting the thought go, right? We're not creating, here's the point, we're not creating this peace of mind. We're not creating this limitless clarity, this state of peace, state of awareness. We're not creating it. That's there when we clear away the obscurations, which are the thoughts, the discursive thoughts, and emotions. Otherwise, like he's saying, that awakened state, that clarity of mind would be a product dependent on cause and effect. It's not. That's there. That's always there. It's always been there. You can't get rid of it. You can't get more of it. You can't give it away, to quote a friend of mine. That's our basic nature, right? All these other things are what have thoughts and the way we process things have accumulated over time and get in the way of that constantly. Because notice, the thoughts that come in, all right, week after week after week, are probably very different. Like what came into my mind today was different than what came in last week. It's different than what, when we do another session in a few minutes, another meditation session, those thoughts are probably going to be different than what I just had. But what is the same is that clarity. That clarity is always there. We're not creating it. We're going to it because it's there. That's what I'm trying to say. And that's what inspired me. One more section that I thought was interesting. In order to see for ourselves how this process works, we must examine our own experience. But how, we might ask? How are we to conduct this examination? What method or tool are we to use? The method that the Buddha discovered is meditation. He discovered that struggling to find answers did not work. It was only when there were gaps in his struggle that insights came to him. He began to realize there was a sane, awake quality within him which manifested itself only in the absence of struggle. So the practice of meditation involves letting be. That's what we're doing here. So the thoughts come and we're kind of just letting them be, letting ourselves be. And when we do that, we get in touch with the nature of mind, which is, like we said, this, similar to this vastness of clear blue sky, of clarity, potentiality, peace. There have been a number of misconceptions regarding meditation. Here's a good point. Some people regard it as a trance-like state of mind. Others think of it in terms of training in the sense of mental gymnastics, but meditation is neither of these. Right? So it's not spacing out. It's not that we're not hypnotizing ourselves. It's not this. That's why I say with the gaze, we're not trying to like intensely gaze at something. We're not hypnotizing ourselves. We're not like going to this place where we're tuning everything else. We're actually almost more tuned into everything. So it's not a trance-like state, and it's not this mental gymnastics where it's this complex mental operation and complex web of thought we're kind of creating to get somewhere. We're just letting go. We're settling into our true nature. The practice of meditation involves letting be. Now, there's a story regarding the Buddha which recounts how he once gave a teaching to a famous sitar player who wanted to study meditation. Sitar is similar to a guitar, only a lot more complex. It's an Indian instrument. The musician asked, "Should I control my mind or should I completely let go?" The Buddha answered, "Since you are a great musician, tell me how you would tune the strings of your instrument." The musician said, "Well, I would make them not too tight and not too loose." Likewise, the Buddha said, in your meditation practice, you should not impose anything too forcefully on your mind, nor should you let it wander. That's the teaching of letting the mind be in a very open way, feeling the flow of energy without trying to subdue it and without letting it get out of control, right? Not trying to subdue it, not judging the thought, not saying it's bad, not trying to quell, just crush it. And also not just letting it get out of control, following the thought. You know what I mean by following the thought. What I have an appointment at 2:00. Who am I going to meet? What I have to get dressed at 1:30 and make sure I had lunch at 12:00. So when I have the meeting, I'm not going to be hungry. That's the following the thought. Such practice is necessary generally because our thinking pattern, our way of conducting our life in the world, is either too manipulative, imposing itself on the world, or it runs wild and uncontrolled. The same thing, judging the thought, controlling the thought, or just following it and letting it getting out of control. The process of transforming the material of mind from expressions of thought and the ego's ambition into expressions of basic sanity through the practice of meditation, this might be said to be the true spiritual path. That's up for you guys to decide whether or not it is the true spiritual path. It is for me. That's why I'm here, and that's why I'm teaching this. And like I said, many religions use meditation practices, and many religions, are authentic spiritual paths that will bring you much benefit if that's what you choose to follow with your heart and with your mind. So I'm not encouraging Buddhism. I'm encouraging you to follow your spiritual path. I am encouraging meditation, though. I will encourage that. Let us do another session. Let's do 4 minutes. And then after 4 minutes, we're going to do question and answer. Okay. Let's think of 2 things I want you to focus on. Focus on the out breath coming through your nostrils more than the in. And I don't mean intensely. I don't mean like rigidly. Just be a little bit more aware of the out breath and see what that does. And number 2, more importantly, I want you to embrace and think of that state of clarity, that clear sky, as your natural state, kind of as the basis for who you really are. Because, the basis for who we are comes from the mind. Everything we experience in the world and how we relate to them comes through the mind. So the more we start to relate to the mind as a place of such clarity and peace, potentiality, and really what comes through that is, there's no aggression coming out of that. That state is very calm and tranquil. Usually from a calm and tranquil place, we make better decisions, more sane decisions. That's where our sanity lies, not our neurosis, right? So think about that as yours. When you get to that state, when you're feeling that state, that's you, that's yours. Okay, 4 minutes. Um, some people, ask about guided meditation, which I've done it a little bit with you guys. Um, Maybe we'll do a little of that. Sometimes I should say, uh, relax, you know, even at taking the posture and, relax the body and mind. That's really what we're doing too. I mean, it's such a mundane word, but that is part of it, you know. Let's take some questions. Veronica says, what should you do if you're interrupted during the session? Should you just start over after or just try again another time? This happened to me the other day. I wasn't sure what to do. That's a good question. I think you should, just, if you have time, go back. Just, it's okay. You know, it's even during like the 4 minutes we just did, it's okay to like reset. Like you may find yourself spacing out. Like at one point, I needed to take a deep breath. Wilma, this might apply to you as well. I needed to kind of just reset my breathing. I needed a deep breath, maybe because my body needed, more oxygen, maybe because it's too stuffy in this room, it's very hot where I am right now. So there might be times during the actual session you need to just reset, like, readjust the posture, readjust the body. You're getting a little too tight, you're getting too stiff. Totally fine. Someone interrupts you. You may have to open the door for the mailman, or, the postal worker, whatever. Go right back to the session. It's totally fine. Because ultimately, this practice we're doing, we want to bring it into our daily activities and life, So when we're online at the, Department of Motor Vehicles renewing our driver's license and it's taking a long time and you're angry because it looks like the person's ignoring you or whatever it is, you can become aware of that thought. Maybe let it go. If you can do something, I'm not saying we should be doormats. If you're being treated unfairly, of course you speak up and you deal with it, but maybe not without so much anger reacting in the moment or aggression, but just with a directness. And maybe if it's circumstances that you can't control, that are just going to take some time, to allow us to have patience rather than this angered, agitated state of when are they going to get to me, just the patience that it's going to be when it's going to be. So, Veronica, if you're interrupted and you still want to, it's up to you. I'm not telling you what to do. If you want to go back to your practice, go back. Totally fine. Ellie says, hello. I really struggle to keep my eyes open during meditation. I don't feel like I'm going to fall asleep, but my eyelids become heavy and it can be a struggle. Is this a problem? It's not a struggle if it's not affecting the practice. The only, there are some traditions, even some Buddhist traditions, I believe, that, keep their eyes closed. There's also certain meditative practices that are a little bit different than what we're doing, where I tend to keep my eyes closed. It's totally fine as long as the quality of the meditation stays the same. What we're trying to get at, the awareness of thought, becoming aware that when we're thinking and letting the thought go, being able to go back to our anchor, the breath, being able to play with this metaphor, if you choose to, of the sky and the clouds, representing our mind, giving us an image and a tool in which to work with thought and work with our mind. So if you're okay with it, if you find closing your eyes tends to make you fall asleep, that's not productive. And if you do find that closing your eyes makes you space out, by space out, just that dull, either a dull quality where you're not aware of your thoughts and your thoughts will eventually take over, uh, or just, asleep. That's not what we're trying to do here. Hi, Michael. This is from Lauren. I'm enjoying this class so much. I'm glad you're enjoying it. So am I. Before I get to the rest of your question, I owe you guys thanks because, to be honest, teaching this class, and like I say, I'm not a teacher. I'm just somebody who's practicing and trying to learn and just passing on what I've learned. That's what I'm doing. But doing this class has really helped me helped my practice a lot, reminding me of, the techniques, and just having to be very clear and articulate, or trying to be articulate, so I can teach it, has helped me be more connected to my own practice. So for that, I thank you guys. So Lauren, you're welcome. And thank you. Any suggestions for tuning out sounds while meditating, specifically someone talking? Well, there's a couple of things I could say about that. One is a very kind of simple, uh, basic thing, and one is a more connected more to my Buddhist practice. And please don't. My job here is not to convert people to Buddhism. I'm not trying to do that at all. You know, I'm just sharing things that have worked for me in the past. Like I said, I respect, and you should all embrace your own spiritual paths and religions and whatever really gives meaning to your life. That's important. So one way is treat it as the same way we treat thoughts, right? Because it's not the fact that someone's talking, it's the fact that somebody's talking and you're hearing it. And we do hear through our ears, but actually we hear through our minds, because it's the mind that basically decodes what we're hearing and makes us aware that there is something called sound, or some sound happening. Our minds is where the experience of hearing sound happens. The ear is just the mechanism, through which the sound goes, but the mind is where the experience happens. So in essence, we can treat the sound the same way we treat the thought, because we're relating to that sound through our thought. That's the voice of somebody I love. That's the voice of somebody I don't like. That voice is really loud. That voice sounds really angry. Those are thoughts. We don't just, sound just doesn't happen for sound. You know what I mean? As sound, it has a quality. We give it a quality. So the same way, there's that sound, back to the breath. There's that sound, recognize it, let it go, leave it where it is, back to the breath. That person's still talking. That person sounds really depressed today. Leave that where it is. My mind is clear like a sky, back to the breath. You see what I mean? It's very similar. It's the same thing for other things that we experience through the senses, like a hot room. You become aware of that sometimes. Stuffy room, that's not pleasant. Leave it where it is. We're not going to die from it, hopefully. So we go back to the breath the same way. In the same author that I read today, in another book last night I read, he talks about we talk about five senses, right? So hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, and touch, right? There's a sixth in this type of practice, which is thinking, which he said basically kind of controls and is the linchpin of all the other senses. For that reason, because all those senses we experience not necessarily through when we taste something, whether it tastes good or not is judged by the mind, right? We experience it through the sense perceptors, right? Those whatever sensors we have on our tongue that have salty or sweet, or but the actual judgment of them and the experience of them happens in the mind through thinking. Oh, that's horrible. That reminds me of that terrible dish I had 5 years ago in that awful restaurant with that angry waiter. Or, no, that tastes just like grandma's, macaroni. Um, so, the other suggestion, and this is a more spiritual suggestion, is to hear all sound as like mantra, and mantra, someone asked, do I use a mantra? Sometimes in meditation, but that has to be given to you really by a teacher. But you know, almost like you're hearing all sounds as like the sounds of the angels, or, you know, the sounds of enlightened beings or wisdom beings, or, you know, celestial bodies or something like that, even if they sound unpleasant. That's a little bit more esoteric and a little bit more difficult, but it's something to consider maybe. Sarah says, I often get music stuck in my head. So do I, Sarah. I really do, like a lot. And I love music, but sometimes sometimes I notice. Would this method help with that? Sometimes the song get really stuck in there. Yeah, they do. But I notice that when I meditate, they get stuck less. Well, during the practice, at least, you know, they're not getting stuck any less in life. I don't know what that means. But during the practice, you know, if you're hearing the song, you should apply the same techniques as you would apply to a thought or an emotion. The same thing. Oh, I'm hearing that song again in my mind, because you're not really hearing it. It's weird, right? It's almost as if you're hearing the song, the qualities of the song and the sound, and you're not. Same thing though. I'm hearing it again. Leave it where it is, almost as if you can see it. That's why we're using the imagery of the clouds and the sky, almost as if you could see that song as part of this bigger thing, which is the mind. Because if you can, then it can dissipate back into the mind. So I would treat it the same way. See if that works. Okay, we'll take one more. Nick, I'm going to take Nick's question, and we're going to sit again. Thank you so much for doing these seminars. It's been great. Meditating with someone else has strengthened my resolve to practice more. It's strengthened my resolve to practice more too, because you know, today I probably would have went back to sleep, because I was tired. But it forced me to not only be here and practice and teach with, you know, this class, but also meditate. My question is this: you mentioned this seminar helping strengthen your connection to the practice. What are some ways to detect that our attention may be slipping in our daily practice? Um, you know, only you can know that through the practice, and it's working with the thoughts and the mind. You know, it's turning that attention within, instead of, usually our attention is looking out, lost in thought and projection and fears of the future and hopes of the future and regrets about the past, worries about what's happening. Looking within at the mind in this moment and what it's doing. Okay, let's do 1 minute and see what kind of quality we get out of 1 minute. So 1 minute can be quite nice sometimes. 1 minute can be both long and short also. Okay, I'm going to take a couple more questions, and then we're going to do one last session. All right. Francesca says, if you're having a really bad day and can't manage the intrusive thoughts, would you advise ceasing the attempt at meditation and returning back to it in a bit, or should you try to push through and maybe keep things short? That's a really good question. One teacher once told me, and we tried it, I think maybe in the first class. Maybe we should try it now. to take a break, right? And then, so take a break, but practice during the break. So take a break, meaning get up, go to the bathroom, go get a glass of water, but meditate during that time. Focus on the breath, be aware of the thoughts. And then when you come back and you get into your posture, instead of meditating, take a break, which means whatever. But stay in that posture, right? Does that make sense, Francesca? That's kind of a strange answer. So I think you're going to learn that what works through trial and error. But yeah, you could take a break, you know, maybe try to have some kind of awareness during the break of your thoughts and what's happening in your breath. Pushing through, the word push through is not great because it implies this effort, like, you know, this effort of strain, which is not what we're trying to do. Sitting in meditation is hard in a lot of ways, although it's very easy, right? Because you're just sitting doing nothing. But there is, especially in the beginning, the habit of it and learning of it, it does take effort because it does take that kind of physicality and the stillness in the body and, focusing the mind, but it does get easier. So yeah, it's okay to take a little break. I would do that rather than say, start, pushing through also connotates like being angry at yourself, like you're failing or not doing good. It's meditation is not something to be judged as good or bad. I mean, sometimes it's a little easier to be in the nature of mind and without thoughts than others, but you know, it's like doing if you did 20 push-ups every day. It's like if you're doing 20 push-ups, you're doing 20 push-ups. That's the important thing. It's not whether those 20 were perfect and those 20 were great, you did it. It's not the best analogy, but that's what we got right now. Um, Mark from Spain. Hello, Mark. How long did it take for you to make meditation a habit? It took me a while. I remember when I think I said this before. I never thought I'd be able to meditate, which I think most people do. They think of it as something that other people can do, or people who are more spiritual or more calm or whatever. But the whole point is we're not. So that's why we need to meditate. We're not calm. We're not spiritual. So we need to meditate. So it takes a while, like anything else, but I think the benefits are so great that I can't imagine not having it as a part of my life. And there's days when I don't. I'm not saying, I do it every day without fail. I mean, there's days when I don't. Most of the days I do, but I do try every day to kind of go into that state of mind during the course of my day. That's state of mind awareness of the thought, but you know, relating to the clarity of mind and stuff like that. Louise from Birmingham in the United Kingdom. I'm wondering if you experience judgments from others about doing meditation. Where I am from, lots of people have biased views on meditation, although I love it personally. Sure, I get lots of judgment for teaching this class, but that's not going to stop me. And nor should anything of value ever, anything that you believe in that brings you benefit, that's close to your heart, that you have a lot of faith in, should never be something you stop because of people's judgment. You know what I mean? Probably eventually they're going to meditate, and they may do it because you're doing it. But yeah, to some people, because you know how a lot of people are. They think, oh, you think you're better than me because you do this. You never used to do it. Why are you doing it now? Well, because we're here to evolve and to grow, right? Not just to be the same person. You know what I mean? We want to, we see things that we want to change. We want to better. And see things that are problems. We want to overcome them. But don't be hampered by that kind of thought, because there's no shortage of that. people who just don't want to see you do anything different because it's threatening somehow to them, whatever it is, you know, not just meditation, but whatever belief or, you know, whatever your humanity is that's different to those around you that people want to judge or threaten by, whether it be whatever religious belief, sexuality, um, taste in art, the way you dress, the way you wear your, you know, whatever, you know, that kind of judgment and fear at being judged, you know, it just, you know, limits our individuality and those things. That's just those we have to not give into. It's important and sometimes very difficult and sometimes dangerous and sometimes scary, but the great writer, one of my favorite authors, his name is Ralph Ellison, wrote a book called Invisible Man, which is probably the best novel written in the United States in the 20th century. And he has a great quote that says, "The individual is a minority." And I'll let you think about that and sort that out and figure out what it means to you. But it meant something to him, and he was a genius. Hi, Michael. Has meditation improved your health in any way? Probably. They do say it brings lots of health benefits. Somebody wrote to me here saying that it improved his blood pressure. Um, it can improve you physically with heart rate and, you know, less mental stress and, you know, probably a lot of things. That's not what brought me to it, but if I'm getting those benefits, I'll take them. Let's do 5 minutes meditation, which will feel like a long time, but it's not. It's only 5 minutes. Great. For me, that place of clarity and calm is where love, compassion, and kindness come from, really. So those spiritual qualities, that's what we're cultivating. So let's dedicate the merit, any merit and benefit we receive from this practice today. And we use a dedication prayer for that Nick, our producer, our kind producer, thank you, Nick. Thanks for your help today. Dedication of merit. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of fault and delusion. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Thank you again. We will be here next Monday. If you want to write, Nick, can you put up our email address if you want to write about, I'm thinking maybe Meditation 101 will be another couple of weeks, and then we'll do meditation. That's at Michael Imperioli, meditation 101 at Gmail. Meditation 101 might just be another couple of weeks, and we may take a break, or then maybe figure out what meditation 102 is going to be. So, but I want some of your input on what you feel, what you're liking, what you want more of, what you're not getting and you want some more of, that kind of thing. All right. Till next week.